Oh, oops. Go. Hey, yo, get ready to get apologetic, because it's about to get super epic. Step 1. Let's ask a question. Let's get the conversation wheels turning.
And don't forget to pray.
Well, it's really, I think, a settled matter at this point. Evolution has just been proven time and time again when you compare it to creation.
Well, what do you mean by proven? Because as far as I know, it's just called the theory of evolution. What makes it proven? Step 2. You gotta listen. You gotta show the people that you're interested.
Like, if you just look at, like, the origins of it, like, especially with the work of Darwin, the foundation that he laid for those theories, or that main theory is just incredible. The amount of effort he puts in, the amount of detail he shows, the amount of that chain of evidence he reveals to be proving this step conclusively.
Right. He did put a lot of effort, like going out to the islands and stuff. That definitely took investment.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, that was a guy who was really invested in his theory. I don't think it was out of any kind of antagonism towards the church or anything like that. It wasn't that he had an axe to grind with them, but he was like, hey, this is the way the world works, guys. I'm sorry, but, I'm a scientist, and part of a scientist's job is to not be caring about people's feelings on the subject, but, pursuing the truth in it.
Okay. I appreciate that. Step 3. Time for reflection. Make sure you got the gist of their opinion. So what it sounds like is that you really appreciate and you're basing everything off of Darwin's original theories and Origin of Species?
Well, I wouldn't say everything, but basically, yeah.
Okay. Step 4. You need discernment. Maybe take a sec. No need to rush it. You could ask him to clarify, help y'all see eye to eye. Ain't nobody want to hear you talk the entire time. Have you actually read The Origin of Species?
I've read excerpts of it. I haven't read the whole thing ever, but I've read some of the most pertinent passages.
Okay. Did you happen to see the passage where Darwin actually talks about how he hasn't found any fossil evidence for it yet, but that he's hoping and that he believes that he will find fossil evidence for missing links, but yet to this day we still haven't found any kind of missing link fossils?
I think we've found some that definitely lead in that direction. And it's not just, that's not the only thing. He uses the finches that I mentioned, a lot of other examples to show how that works too.
Okay. Step 5. Respond if you can. Stick to what you know. Don't say things you can't defend. Okay, I see what you mean, but I think science more points to the finches that were on the islands that Darwin found were the finches that already had beaks conducive to surviving on those islands. Certain finches would have smaller beaks because there were, seeds that, or fruits that needed smaller beaks to open, whereas on other islands there were finches with bigger beaks, and those beaks were better at getting the types of foods that were on those islands. And so over time, the finches with the smaller beaks survived on islands that were conducive to having smaller beaks, and the finches with bigger beaks survived on islands conducive to having bigger beaks. It wasn't necessarily that, the larger beaked ones came and then adapted smaller beaks the smaller beaks came and then adapted to having larger beaks.
Okay, I guess you could argue from that perspective as well, but what if you consider, say, how dolphins have the same number of bones in their flippers as humans have in their hands, right? Right there you have a connection. Unless you're just going to argue that it was random chance that made it so they have the same number of bones, that you can see a common ancestor there already.
If you're not sure what to say, no need to be ashamed. Ask if you can get back to him another day. Huh, that's actually a pretty good point. I don't know if I've ever thought about that. Would you mind if I gave you my email or something so I could get back to you on that? Or if we met back up for, to talk about this more?
Yeah, no, sure. I got time.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that's Apologetics 101 Freestyle. Go ye therefore. Alright, howdy y'all. So for my final presentation, I'm going to do a quick synopsis on natural selection, how it works, and how it raises some questions for the theory of evolution. This is going to be a pretty basic example, but hopefully this will help. So, I'm going to do this on my handy-dandy whiteboard. And so what we're going to start with is a male wolf and a female wolf. Now, we are going to assume that the male wolf will have long hair, and so will the female. But they will both carry what is called a recessive allele for short hair. Now, what does that mean? Well, an allele is basically like a different version of a gene. So both of these, L and S, are genes for, how long a wolf's hair is. So you could get a long hair gene or a short hair gene. But for the sake of the example, we are going to assume that L is a dominant allele, which means if you have a long hair gene, you are always going to express the long hair gene instead of the short hair gene. So anything with an L in it is going to have long hair. So both of these wolves have long hair. But what happens when they breed is that you line this. We're going back to 7th grade with Punnett squares. So how this works is you put the mother's alleles on top and the father's alleles going down. And then you proceed to line them up. And by lining them up, you can determine the phenotype or the genotypes, which are the combination of alleles that the kids or the puppies would have. So if we take this first square is assuming we got the long hair gene from the mom and the long hair gene from the dad. So this puppy will have long hair and it will not have the ability to have kids with short hair. But this one will get the long hair gene from its mother and the short hair gene from its dad. So this one will have the potential to have kids with short hair should it meet another LS. Then we're going to see that this one gets the long hair gene from its dad, but the short hair gene from its mom. So these two are basically the same genotype. But lastly, we have the recessive allele from the dad, so the short hair gene, and the short hair gene from the mom. So if you were to breed both of these two genotypes, both letters or combination of alleles, you would have a 25% chance of getting a long hair with another long hair gene, a long hair with a recessive short, or 50% chance of getting a long hair with a short hair gene, and a 25% chance of getting a short-haired puppy. So this one will have short hair visibly. And so what will happen is say, LL, LS, and LS, and then SS all migrate somewhere and say it's pretty cold. These three with the long hair will survive, but the short hair will probably die. But if we were to go somewhere warm, all three of them, these three would probably die because they'd overheat, but this one with the short hair will stay alive. So that just goes to show how natural selection will pick the organism or will show, natural selection is basically the process that organisms with the traits most adept for survival in a certain area will survive while the rest of them will die. But what that leads to is limited gene pools in that area. So say this puppy goes and meets another female short hair, so SS. Now all of their kids are going to have both short hair alleles. And now you can never, like, if you were to breed this guy, you could never, with this lady, with these two short hairs, you could never get a long-haired puppy because that genetic information is lost in, say, this desert. None of the other organisms in the area will have an L allele, so now you have lost the ability in that area to have a puppy with long hair. So that just goes to show that where evolution needs us to be gaining information, natural selection tends to make things lose information over time.